name's Roland Wilson, and I grew up in a small town called Hay in New South Wales, and so that makes me a Wiradjuri man. And so Hay, if you don't know where that is, halfway between here and Sydney, in the middle of nowhere. And so I grew up there for 18 years with my family. So my mum, stepdad, 3 sisters. So and then I moved, from Hay to Canberra to study. I suppose, why did I want to become a teacher? I think there are 2 main reasons. The first one being that I had some good experiences and not so good experiences at school, and I think that really gave me a very strong sense of social justice, I suppose, and I think that teachers are really critical in being able to form that sense of right and wrong, and that sense of community and participation and being a good citizen and that sort of thing within students. And so from those experiences, as a student in primary school and high school, I think that sense of wanting to make the world a better place is probably a key driver in why I want to be an educator, and why I became a teacher. The other reason is because I had some really fantastic teachers along the way who really supported me. There were 2 in particular, 2 female teachers who were really very loving and very caring, and understood some of the issues that I had and where I was coming from and the background I was coming from. And so and they were very patient with me and very loving and very supportive as teachers. Encouraged me the whole way through my high school career. And I can pretty much say that if it wasn't for those 2 women, that I probably wouldn't have finished high school. And so, that's, those two women acting as role models and as friends in a way. So it really helped me get through high school and finish high school, and encouraged me to look for something beyond that. So, and when I thought about a few years after high school what it is that I really wanted to do, then teaching was the obvious standout for me. Were there many Aboriginal perspectives offered through high school? Not explicitly, and not, through whether it's through curriculum or through school activities, there wasn't a lot of Indigenous perspectives offered through the school. One of the things that did connect me with my Aboriginality was one of the teachers who I mentioned earlier. She was very aware of my situation and encouraged me to explore that part of my identity. And she actually helped to organise my participation twice, actually, in the reburial of Aboriginal remains that were repatriated from overseas. And so those were two experiences that are really memorable for me, and through that experience, I kind of understood that connection, although it wasn't really explicitly taught, and at home it was never ever spoken about at home either. So I suppose those experiences, that cultural and ceremonial experience, were really the only exposure that I had to Indigenous perspectives and my own culture as well. So yeah. So the journey I went on I finished high school, and I then went to study science at the Australian National University. I ended up doing a Bachelor of Science and I majored in forestry. I got a cadetship with the CSIRO and worked for them for a number of years. And then I decided that I didn't want to pursue that career any further for a number of reasons, but primarily because I did want to go into high school teaching. It was really the first career that I'd thought of, when I was actually in high school. It was the first career that I'd actually thought of doing, and it was something that when I was thinking of a career path that I thought would, that would really suit me and my, what I valued in life, I suppose. And so all of that science background came in handy for becoming a teacher, because I was able to teach a lot of things. I ended up teaching geography and science, economics, commerce, all of those subject areas. And so So I finished with CSIRO, did my teacher training at the University of Canberra, and then got a job at one of the private schools in Canberra. So it was an all-girls school, Canberra Girls Grammar. Worked there for about a year and a half and then went into the public system after that. And I've been pretty much teaching ever since. So my experiences of being a classroom teacher are very positive, actually. So I really enjoy the classroom. So I love interacting with students and being able to expose students to ideas or concepts and being able to talk with students about those ideas. And I love getting to know students as well, knowing a bit about their stories, where they come from, their background, seeing their challenges and struggles and then being able to overcome them. So that's probably the most, rewarding experience, is being able to see those students who don't understand something or who are struggling with a part of their education or their life or whatever it is, and having those light bulb moments is really rewarding, because you know that you're doing a good job if you see the light bulb come on and it's like, wow, they actually get it, they understand me, I'm doing a good job. So that's, for me, that's, in the classroom, that's the most rewarding thing, and being able to interact with the students is absolutely fantastic. So and there's, as a classroom teacher, there's trials and, there's difficulties sometimes, but, whether you've got a class of gifted and talented students or, students who might have some behavioural issues or anywhere in between. But if you're able to work with those students, and if you're able to engage those students in real concrete learning that is fun and exciting, and that they can have a connection with, then they're going to enjoy themselves, and that's, education should be fun. Yeah. No, there wasn't actually. So there was no inclusion of Indigenous issues. There was no dedicated, topic like we have here at Flinders, and I don't think it was encouraged at all, actually. So and on reflection, that's probably a bit weird now from where I am now to looking at my own training. That's it's I suppose broadly, I think that educators need to be teachable, and as a teacher and for non-Indigenous teachers, having that willingness to be open-minded, to be open to new ideas and ways of thinking and ways of seeing the world, I think is really important. And I suppose bringing that back to how they can be engaged in the Aboriginal community and engaging Indigenous students. Perhaps, for those teachers, understanding, who they are and reflecting on their journey as a non-Indigenous person in a country that has been subject to colonisation, and how they can then change that perspective to include Indigenous voices in the classroom is probably a good starting point. And then, once you start including Indigenous voices in the classroom, that potentially opens up that conversation for Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. So, including, Aboriginal heroes, culture, identity, history, those sorts of things. Yeah. In terms of community, one of us on reflection, in my time as a secondary teacher, I think a lot of teachers were afraid to be engaged because they don't have the language and they don't have the understanding of where to go for those, to make those connections and to get those resources. And I think that those teachers need to have exposure to the idea that you don't need to be afraid, that the Aboriginal community wants to be engaged in the education process, and that if non-Indigenous educators are willing to take that step to include the Indigenous community in the classroom and in the school environment, then that partnership can be really very valuable. Why would I encourage other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to be teachers? Because it is a really rewarding career. It really is. And I think, when I look back on my experiences as a teacher, one of the standout moments for me was when I taught a young Indigenous girl in Canberra, and she was really very upset because she was encountering racism in the classroom and in the school environment, and as the only Aboriginal teacher in the school, she turned to me for that support and that emotional and cultural support. And I think because we're so rare, as Aboriginal, there's not a lot of Aboriginal teachers out there, and so being able to support our students in those environments where they are encountering resistance and racism and those sorts of things, that's going to make a world of difference for that student. And so having somebody who can love them and support them and help them through those difficult times is going to be absolutely valuable for those students. And I think as an Aboriginal teacher, you can be a leader as well within your community and within the school as well, and you actually, as a teacher, have that ability to have a very powerful voice within that community and be able to help shape that school environment and that community in a way that is more friendly and culturally safe for Indigenous students. I suppose just to give a bit of background, so I actually took some time off teaching for family reasons, and then I went back to studying at university, and that didn't work out for me. I didn't want to pursue that particular career, and so I was going to go back to high school teaching, And being in Adelaide, in a new environment, in a new teaching environment, I wasn't familiar with the school system or the schools or anything like that. And in a way, I suppose I just fell into this job. The opportunity came up and it seemed like the perfect fit because I love the student support aspect of it. I love interacting with students and I love the collegial aspect of it as well, and being able to interact with your peers as colleagues and professionals. But I still love the classroom, and so I suppose those three aspects of this particular job are my three favourite bits of teaching. So you get the student bit of it, you get the your colleagues, and you get the classroom. And I suppose it was a bit daunting in the sense that I'm transitioning from high school into tertiary education, but working at Yungarendi is such a supportive environment that you feel like you're well supported and you're loved. So it's a really great place to work in. So yeah, and I found the transition not to be as difficult as what I thought it would be in terms of teaching high school students to tertiary students. That's because those skills that you have as a classroom teacher in a high school, all of those skills and knowledge and the practice of teaching, or the art of teaching, is really transferred into the classroom at the university, and there's no real difference, I suppose, in that sense of teaching in either environment. Yeah, look, I think it's really important that we have more Aboriginal men as teachers. I think that Aboriginal men would be excellent role models for our youth. And I suppose particularly Aboriginal boys, providing that really strong role model within the school, but in the community as well, I think is really important for our youth. And I certainly see a time where there are more Aboriginal men as teachers that are providing that really strong foundation for our Aboriginal youth. So, yeah, I think
Aboriginal men teachers or Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander?
I've never met another Aboriginal high school teacher actually. When I was in the high schools, there were no Aboriginal students when I was doing my teacher training, and I never met another Aboriginal teacher I was teaching in Canberra for four years, and I never met another Aboriginal teacher. Even though, we had quite a number of Aboriginal students in all the schools that I worked in. So, yeah, that again, that we need more Aboriginal teachers to provide that role model and to provide that foundation for our youth.